fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
Beautiful sunrise coming up over the marshes along the Mullica River. Picture postcard perfect. Kind of hoping the luck of the Irish was going to be with me up here on the Mullica River. Didn't happen. Jim Hutchinson, New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine. March 17th, 2022. Wanted to head out here along the Mullica in search of a first-person eyewitness account of some of those striped bass. Well, that's what happens. It was picture perfect this morning, flat calm. I did know of a couple of stripers caught here along this stretch of the Mullica. I know some folks have moved a little farther west of the bridge, but we had water temperatures here just outside of 43 degrees. We moved a little east down around the bend, still a little bit chilly. So hopefully a few more degrees of water temperature will get us into some really good striper fishing. But there are stripers here for sure. And also saw at least 3 ospreys and a bald eagle or 2. With the ospreys arriving, it certainly means the bunker, perhaps even some of the herring, are starting to arrive. Now, we had the first big keeper striper reported thus far on a tackle box wormball. That came on Friday, right before dark. Misel Segovia, Bayshore Flats, where Phil said the water temperatures there and along the northern stretch hit 48, 49 degrees going into the weekend. So that's terrific. Now, I've talked about the wormball before. That's a combo of a few bloodworms, and as Phil explains it, a few sandworms as well, hung off of an inline circle hook with a small piece of rag that's then folded back onto itself. That will adhere it to that hook. And of course, what Phil always talks about is squeeze some of that Finessence clam oil on there as well. And with those worm balls, you can continue to reuse them time after time as well. It's very similar to that blood bag that guys use along the Delaware River in the spring when using circle hooks and bloodworms. They wrap up the blood in some tulle, keeps them away from getting nipped by perch, but it's also a good presentation for that circle hook, because the most important thing about the circle hook is making sure that your gap, right, that bottom of the hook, is as empty as possible. You don't want to load that up with bait, but it's also with a blood bag is a good way, same thing with the worm ball, of keeping those bloods or sandworms on the hook when you're casting and getting some hits. Now, the bigger fish have moved up the Delaware River. That's the word we get from Brinkman's Bait and Tackle in Philly. This 38-incher on a bloodworm, the angler chose to stay as anonymous as his spot, but I do know of a few fish caught up the Delaware at this point. These local sod banks here along the Mullica River, also the great egg, as always, and the sandy stretches of the Delaware at Fortescue and the Raritan Bayshore, giving up some fish on bait, as it did for Delaware freshwater guide Tim Keebler, who was out on some of the local sedges. Looks like he was looking with bloodworm, so definitely bloodworm is the way to go on those muddy flats. Dr. Adam Aguiar, Stockton University, says his students are getting out and about, finding some fish in the past week. And of course, I got a great photo from Nick Honicheski, the LaFonte boys decked out in their saltwater underground garb on the spring striper grounds from one of the back bays. Now, there are some small stripers up along the Hudson, the piers at Bayonne and Jersey City. That's according to Akira at True World Tackle. I know some of the better fishing has been up some of those rivers. Think the Passaic and the Hackensack. And of course, we've been talking about it for a couple of weeks. A lot of stripers moving downriver from their wintering grounds, according to Phil at the Tackle Box, up the Raritan. Steve at Upfront Bait and Tackle said it's just tremendous as well. A lot of smaller fish along the Raritan Bay, but I expect that will change a little bit. I think that with those, those heavy northwest winds we had over the weekend, you saw where it pushed a lot of water out the bay. When we're talking about areas of the Toms River, I think the Toms River emptied out as well. A lot of folks talked about fish being stacked up in there, but I think once that water starts to pour out on the offshore winds, maybe some of those striped bass have moved around throughout Barnegat Bay. So it's just a matter of, as we reported last week, Jason from Fisherman Supply saying, look, just find yourself some kind of beach access, some street access along the Barnegat Bay. If you want to dunk some bloods, maybe throw some of those plastics. South of here in the Great Egg, Bob Stavola let me know that he had a good trip with his nephew Antonio catching bass on soft plastics. Now, Bob told me the fish were stacked up in there. If you want to believe me or believe him, you can look for his B-Stab Fishing channel on YouTube. I'm going to check it out. burn some of your spots. In fact, do know down in that area, I spoke to the guys at Fanatics earlier this week just to find out what was going on. They said the back bays there in that particular area of the Great Bay have been on fire, especially at night. Fish hitting 4-5 inch paddle tails. They're taking a few keeper stripers. Most of them are chunky and undersized, great light tackle. Although, as I keep talking about it in weeks past about those Rapala X-Raps, the size 10s, and some of those Kettle Creek swing shads, that's what we are throwing out here today. I was hoping to have some amazing video, maybe next week. But that's what it's all about when you're going out fishing, especially this time of year. I did mention there's some bunker around. We saw some bunker in the Mullica River, hearing more reports of bunker, and we know the ospreys are here, and the herring gulls, a few reports of those. But I'll tell you what, when we start seeing those bunker arrive, and you start getting those reports of those big stripers up the Delaware River, you know what time it is. It's time to start gearing up for the healthy spring run. That means it's time to break out the mojos, the majas, and maybe the drift spoons as well.
Hey folks, Captain Mark here. Spring is approaching, and the Edison, New Jersey show is March 18th through the 20th, alright? So come over to the Tony Masha booth, meet Maja, Kid Cochise, Tex. We'll be there on Saturday, probably Sunday morning, alright? What we're going to be showing off is the new Masha Mojos, Masha Spoons, and new for 2022, the beautiful Masha Drift Spoons. They are deadly.
So that Saltwater Fishing Expo is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, March 18th to 20th. Look for me there in booth 462 with the Fisherman magazine. We'll also talk more about circle hooks on Friday at 6 p.m. and then again on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. We'll talk tactics, some tips and ideas on making sure those circle hooks work for you and why they're in place. I know some folks keep asking, you see the stuff flopping around over here, folks keep asking about those bait holder style circle hooks. We've been talking about them for a while now. That's that Eagle Claw laser sharp. This is a size 6.0, but these are the ones that would have the barbs along the shank to hold those bloods in place. Thinner gauge. The brand new ones that are out that I've heard of, talking to Michael Kim from Jigging World or Tackle World up in North Jersey. It's the Jigging World brand, but they've got their Z-Blade circle, their inline circle, the bait holder rigs. And I could tell you that I picked up a couple of packages of these, and these are the things to want to look for. You'll definitely find them at Tackle World. You'll find them online. Michael said they're starting to come around to different shops, but those bait holder style circle hooks are starting to come around. And you want that thinner gauge for the bloodworms, because you're threading it up through the hook, up the shaft to hold it in place, and those little barbs on the back of the shank, that's what's going to hold those bloodworms in place. Some of the bigger style hooks, if you get up into 7s and 8s, they're going to be a little bit heavier gauge, but the bait holder will be really good there in terms of fishing with clams. Of course, you will receive a package of 9.0 Adaya circle hooks, perfect for live bait, big bunker for striped bass, and you'll get a package of Fight Club from Fish Bites when you come and see us at the Saltwater Fishing Show and get your new or renewing subscription to the Fisherman magazine. Other events that are coming up this weekend you might be interested in. You've got in Forked River a spring prep event at Lacey Marine. That's there on Route 9, not far from Oyster Creek. You might want to pick up some bloodworms and try your hand at striper fishing there. But the spring prep event at Lacey Marine is from 8 to 6. They've got special deals and incentives on everything you need to splash your boat, like the folks are splashing here at the ramp at Chestnut Neck. You've also got the 26th annual Rahway Fishing Flea Market. That's this Saturday, March 19th, St. Thomas Church Hall. That's located at 1400 St. George's Avenue in Rahway. That's going to go from 9 till 2. Admission is $5. It's free for children 12 and under. You can get information on that at fishingfleamarkets.com. And of course, the original plug show, the Asbury Park Fishing Club's 29th annual indoor fishing flea market from 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. That's on Sunday the 20th. It's at a new location this year, right across from Convention Hall, where it's always been held. It's at the Berkeley Oceanfront Hotel. The admission there is also $5 for adults, kids 12 and under admitted free with the adult paid admission. And the hotel there is at 1401 Ocean Avenue in Asbury Park. You can visit asburyparkfishingclub.com. Folks have been wondering about winter flounder. It's been a little slow the last week. First week we got probably some better reports than we did the second week. I'm expecting the action to get a little bit better this week because we've got that warming trend. Look for places, the L Street Pier in Shark River. Don't have any reports yet. Spoke to the folks at Julian's about the Navesink. Nobody's doing much there. But I would guess also getting into the upper stretches of Barnegat Bay. Think around the Mantoloking Bridge and the Mantoloking Bridge Pier. We're getting some reports from around Good Luck Point as well. So folks thinking about dunking some bloodworm pieces in a chum pot this week. I know it's only a couple of fish in your bag, but I'll tell you what, there's just about nothing tastier than winter flounder. Winter flounder, of course, we're not talking fluke. Summer flounder. Information has been generally tough to come by from a regulatory standpoint in 2022. The folks that I'm talking to are rather frustrated because we just haven't gotten any word, any options. Now, the next meeting of the New Jersey Marine Fisheries Council is going to be Thursday, April 7th at 5 o'clock. And again, the good folks at the New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife will hold a webinar. Nothing in person. Everything else in the world is in person, guys. These virtual meetings are terrible. We're not getting anything done. But I expect we'll find some more on April 7th. Case in point about very little getting done. You know, the options for the state of New Jersey have been presented by the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. You know, we've got a little bit of flexibility in fluke, for example. We've got a little bit of option to loosen up the restrictions a bit. Well, the options that New Jersey wanted, they go to the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, ASMFC. That's where they are now. March 24th, these options will get approved up and down, yes or no, by the ASMFC, and then they'll get sent back to the state of New Jersey. The advisors that work with the council will look over these options and then bring them to the table on April 7th. Now, a lot of these options have been made public. They are not the actual options that we're going to get yet. But in terms of fluke, there's a good chance we can perhaps go down in size and still get a few extra days of fishing come 2022. If these options that are on the screen that have been presented are approved by the ASMFC. Same thing we're looking at with black sea bass. We are taking a cut. Even though the biomass numbers are up, we are going to have to drop our black sea bass regulations in 2022. Everybody asks, what's it going to look like? That's what it looks like on the screen. Now, those options are going to have to go to the ASMFC, get approved on March 24th, and then we'll find out more. And again, that date is April 7th. We'll have more information the week ahead of that. And of course, I'll have all the coverage on what our fluke and sea bass regulations will be in 2022 after April 7th. My man George is out this week. He's getting foot surgery. I told you the waders were too tight. But on the Garden State freshwater scene, I would remind you, the trout-stocked waters will close after this weekend and not reopen again until opening day, April 9th. We don't have that little thing where we have the special catch and release dispensation going into the opener like we had during COVID. It's funny, we're not allowed to go catch and release trout before the opener, but yet we still have virtual hearings. Disconnect, my friends. So opening day, April 9th. As of Monday, you're not fishing in trout-stocked waters in the Garden State. You got to leave them alone until April 9th. I'll have more on that in the coming weeks as well, particularly as we're back on the shore trout scene again this year. That's right, the Shark River guys, the Shark River surf anglers will be holding their annual trout derby again Saturday, April 9th. Can't wait for that event. I don't know about you, but I'm just loving all these Facebook posts that people share with their gas receipts and the I did that thing. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm kidding, of course. The only meme that I've really liked that I find is pretty funny as we go from one crisis, COVID, to another, recession and war, is this one. Like the one that says, let's just stop driving for 2 weeks so we can flatten the curve. I guess that's what ASMFC was thinking, right? With their Amendment 7 document. If we just stop striper fishing for 2 weeks, we can flatten the curve. That meeting on Monday, I don't know if you sat in on it, but we've got a full write-up going into the meeting about what that is all about, the ASMFC, the 2-week closure, the spawning area closure, the triggers and whatnot. You can get some more information about that by looking for my article at thefisherman.com, but the public comments are due in just a couple of weeks. You want to make sure to pay attention to that. Those hearings will continue for the next several weeks, and you can read more about it there. Also read more about the Recreational Reform Initiative, another set of meetings. If you're not meetinged out now, I'm going to make you meetinged out in the next couple of weeks. But we are getting ready to get back into the season now. Winter flounders open. Guys are catching some striped bass, certainly some perch. Move around these waters, whether you're in the great egg or the Raritan. maybe even push west a little bit more, see if you can't find some of those stripers. But I'll tell you what, regardless of what the ASMFC decides, one of the discussions has been how to reduce the amount of mortality on the fish that we're releasing. 9% perceived mortality on every fish that we're releasing. So the one big thing that we can do at this point, we've moved over to circle hooks with natural bait. I know a lot of people don't love this, but it's supposed to reduce the mortality rate on those striped bass. Also keep in mind this season, especially as you start getting into some of those bigger fish, keep your hands out of the gills. Grab the lip. Don't hold them up vertically, especially if they're the big spawners. Try to cradle those fish. Hold them like you would a baby. Get them back into the water as quickly as possible. We're seeing some photos now of folks that are bringing their fish back, standing near their truck, taking a photo that they're going to release the fish. Try to keep it as close to the water as possible. If you're sending me photos to share here at thefisherman.com and in the Fisherman magazine, make sure you take care of those fish, brush the sand off, make sure I don't see bloody fish, hold them up horizontally, take care of those fish. If it's too close to call, if you're measuring it, don't measure it 15, 16 times. If it's too close to call, let it go. Go catch another one. We'll have more tips on proper release throughout the season, but I can tell you, this week, the weather is here and the fish are beautiful. At least the fishing's beautiful, even if I don't hook up. Catch them up. I'll see you again there at Edison this week for the big shoe. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.